This is Sean with Voices Levon. I'm here with my father, Bill Kurker. We're doing your 50-year career overview about your life in cosmetology. And this is your second location here in NORA. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
So where is it located?
1030 East 86th Street in NORA.
And where's that?
In Indianapolis, Indiana.
And what's your location next to?
It's next to the Target Shopping Center in NORA on the north side of 86th Street.
Just west of the Target.
Right on.
Okay, well, let's go on in and hear your life and career in cosmetology.
Right.
And who made the sign for you?
Sandy did. She put a lot of work into that. She went and bought all the parts of it, put it together, and did a really good job, I thought.
All right, well, let's go on in here to your salon. So this was the original sign at your previous location, is that right?
Correct. Only it's half of the sign. The other half, you took the whole sign down and cut the other half that said hair design on it. First part there, Bill Kurkers, and then the other was hair design. And when you took that off my salon, I remember it was a Thursday night, and you came in, asked me if I had a razor blade of sorts, so I did, and I saw you out there taking down the sign, and I felt like, man, this is the end of the end as far as that salon went. So it was kind of a little bit heart breaking, but it was what happened. I was moving on to a new life in this salon here, just probably less than a block away from the old salon.
And this was made by Sandy, and it shows your original date of October 31st, 1972. When did she make this? Was it soon after your opening?
The date is right there in the corner, 1974 she made it, and it's a needlepoint. She really did a super job on that, I thought.
That's great. So here's where you make sure they're going to be nice and clean before you go into the cosmetology mode. And here's some shots of John Amico, which is the product line. You with the company, was this in Chicago or where was this?
Yeah, that was in Chicago at one of their educational seminars that they hold annually that I've been to probably for the last 7 years. And there's people in there that I see every year that's kind of inspirational, although we didn't make it for the 2 years of COVID. But other than that, I've been up there, and it's great education.
Okay. And over here on the wall, you've got some items. And who is the person that drew this for you? You said they were in Kentucky?
No, actually it was in Florida. The guy that made it, a friend of ours, had a birthday party. He was a dentist, and they had a picture of him on a tractor because he liked farming. And then somehow they worked his name into the tractor and his body shape and all of that. And I thought that was really cool. So I contacted the artist and had him make one for me.
Okay. And you've got a few different other items around here that have to do with hair. And this was at a convention in New York where they made it look like you're on the cover of American Salon. I'm assuming that wasn't an actual magazine.
It was a magazine, but
you weren't on the cover.
No, but with computers and all of that, the magic, they put my face on the front of the cover. So that was just a little perk that they did for us attending the show.
And who did this one for you?
One of my clients. She grew up as a child of missionary parents in Africa, and she searched for that picture, and it's a picture of some kind of an African bird, and she finally found it, put it in the frame, and then she put the little caption at the bottom of the picture that Bill Kurker does my coif.
All right. Well, let's get to your career and go and sit down where you make sure everybody looks great when they leave the seat. So here's the main styling room. Obviously, you've got a lot of other items here that are in the realm of cosmetology as far as sculpture, which is neat. And, you know, these are the different model looking shots here.
From the John Amico line.
And here's where you get it all done. All right.
Yes.
So, Bill, you started your career 2 days ago 50 years ago. And let's talk about what kind of led you up to that. When you were in college, what did you study in college?
Well, I attended Indiana University in Bloomington for 1 year. I started off in journalism, and when I figured out that there was a thing called slanted journalism, I decided I didn't want to do that. I wanted to tell the stories exactly the way they took place. So I switched to business, and I was on campus just for a year, and then I came back here to Indianapolis to the quote unquote extension that was before IUPUI, and studied and took classes, and I probably ended up with an equivalent of 3 years of IU behind me, and decided well, actually, then during that time I was working at AFNB Bank, and while I was working there, I decided that if I didn't finish my degree at IU, then I would probably not advance very far in the bank. So I came up with the idea of becoming a cosmetologist. I spoke with a neighbor who I grew up with, his father, who was a hairdresser, and he encouraged me to do it. I also spoke to one of my bosses at the bank and told him the situation. I felt like I could confide in him, and he was encouraging as well. He said, go try it. If you don't like it, you can always come back to the bank. So I started the cosmetology school in Indianapolis in, I guess, 1971. Took me 9 months to finish. The school was down at 16th and Meridian. It was called the Approved University of Beauty Culture. Anybody in Indianapolis that was doing hair at the time that made any money at all went there. So I felt that it was a good place to go, and I went there and got the basics.
Okay, so what were your parents' names?
Excuse me. Joe and Rosemary Kurker.
And what did they do?
Mom was a stay-at-home mom, and Dad owned a bar down at 22nd and Talbot. And back in the day when he opened it, back in the early 1930s, it was a very good neighborhood. And then over the years, it sort of decreased. And in his latter years, he had to quit working. So my brother, actually, I helped in those latter years. So I did help out while I was going to school in the cosmetology school at the bar. And eventually my brother Murph took it over, and I actually went into the Navy. I was in the Navy for almost 2 years. In the Naval Reserves, I had to go to Great Lakes, where I had my original training up there, and then for like a month, and then I came back here and went to meetings one night a week for a year, and then I had these 2 years active duty, and in that active duty, I was assigned to a ship that was already over in the Philippines, and we did a cruise back and forth between the Philippines and Vietnam for approximately 6 months, and then we went back to our home port, which was Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, and I was back there on the ship for the remainder of the time that I was in the Navy.
You came back to the States, and you'd already met Sandy, your wife, my mother. She's obviously been a part of the business from the beginning, helping on the back end with doing the books and whatnot.
Right.
And what was your original shop that you started at?
I started off out of cosmetology school at the California shop here in NORA, and I worked there 2.5 years on commission, and then I went to a salon also here in NORA that I rented a booth there for 2.5 years, which basically I was self-employed. Then from that, I opened my own salon. My first salon, it had 8 stations, 2 nail technicians, an esthetician, and I was there at that salon, which was Bill Kurker Hair Design, for 33 years. And then after 33 years, I got tired of the drama, closed it, and came to an office park just a couple blocks away called Winterton Office Park. And I have 2 small rooms here, and it's just me and no more drama.
All right. So what do you love about cosmetology in general? What do you love about the interaction with the clients and just what you end up doing for them?
Well, that's it. There is a lot of interaction. We're like the confessor. We hear everything, every situation in a family that you could ever imagine. And also, beside that, the creativity part of it, I really enjoy, as far as being able to be creative with that the people do trust me to give them a different look, or make the look that they have look better. So that's one of the main things I really enjoy doing. And also going to conventions, which I've been to conventions all over the country. Actually, Sandy and I went one year to a world hairdressing competition in London, England, and that was amazing to go watch that. And here in Indianapolis, I got involved early on with the Indianapolis Hairdressers and Cosmetology Association, of which I became involved on the board of directors. I took every position. I was a director, president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, and then I moved on to the State Association and did the same on that board of directors as well, all the way up to the president.
Now, you also helped out with continuing education for, required annual renewal of that through up at Purdue. Is that right?
Well, yes. Our association took like 15 years to get it through legislature to pass that continuing education would be required for our licensure. So we also did classes annually for like 3 or 4 days every summer up at Purdue University, where we would hire people from our national design team to come to Purdue and do these classes. The classes were varied from styling, cutting, coloring, and I remember one class, there was a teacher there talking about the possibility of you doing a deceased person's hair, and that was very, very interesting. And through my career, I have done 3 different deceased people's hair. One was a friend of my mother's, another was a friend of my brother Joe's, and the third one was a really good friend through our State Hairdressers Association, Carol Chamberlain. She lived over in Richmond, Indiana, and when she passed, her family asked me to come and do her hair for the funeral. So I did that, and I felt honored to be able to do that.
So you've had a lot of people work in the salon over the years,
Yes.
right? Ed Horstman, why don't you tell me about Ed?
Oh, Ed, he was an excellent hairdresser. I knew him. I became acquainted with him through the Indianapolis Hairdressers Association. He was on the state education committee and did platform work, and he was one of the best hairdressers I ever knew. The only problem was he looked more like a truck driver than a hairdresser. He would do some lady's hair, sit her down in his chair, and she would sit there, and he said to her, he said, "What do you want?" When he would give her a perm. He says, "Do you want light, medium, or heavy frizz on that perm?" So he was really crazy, but he and his wife became very good friends of ours, and unfortunately both of them are deceased. They both got dementia, which was a very sad affair, and but we had a lot of good times with them, went out to dinner and went to their home, and they came to our home, so it was a really good relationship. We also had a nail tech in the salon. Her name was Panga, and she could do your nails in like 30 minutes or less, and in that length of time, she could get your whole life story from beginning to end, and was not afraid of asking any questions from beginning to end. Any questions that came to her mind, she would throw it out and ask the customer, which was a lot of times not a good thing, but that's just the way she was.
What about Neva? Who was Neva to you?
Oh, Neva was Sandy's aunt, who I did her hair from the beginning. I even went to her home when I was in cosmetology school and did her hair in her home. But she just passed away a couple years ago and lived to the ripe old age of 105. And that she was still had her basic faculties with her. And she was very headstrong. She would clue me in on how to place the rollers or place a pin curl in her hair.
Well, what about her antiques?
Oh yeah, she and her husband Simi had collected antiques, and she brought them into the salon. We had 2 windows that were had exhibit space in them, and so we displayed them in the windows, as well as we had shelves all along one side, built-ins, that we had these antiques displayed and sold them as well. So it gave a little extra cash for our pocket and a little extra cash for her. So it was a good thing.
All right, so you had some unique client situations. The RCA tennis championships, you'd be the guy to come in and handle the pros' hair basically before they went out on the court.
Right.
Talk about that a little bit, what that experience was like.
Well, I started doing Janie Melissa's hair, and her husband Stan was the one that was the instigator in getting the RCA championships to come to Indianapolis. And they asked me if I would go out there and volunteer. I had to take my own styling chair out there, and I volunteered and cut all the players' hair. I did it for several years, and I'd see a couple of the same players each year. And for my efforts, the organization gave me free tickets to the events or to the different matches. So that was fun in itself, watching the matches.
So who did you know Miss Indiana?
Oh, well, I did Judy Gray's hair for probably 20 plus years, and she had a daughter. Actually, I did all 3 of her daughter's hair, but at one point her daughter became Miss Indiana, and I did her hair through that process. And then another good friend of ours, Sharon and John Ryan, their daughter became one of the 500 princesses, and I did her hair as well. That was a real fun experience. We got to go to the 500 ball and all of that, so it was a lot of fun doing that.
All right, so you've been in conventions in Chicago, I'm assuming, and Las Vegas and New York. So when you were the president of the state of Indiana and you were in charge of just the state convention downtown at the convention center, what are all the kind of moving parts and what's the purpose of it?
Well, the main purpose was to make money for our association, and we started off by having an exhibit floor. Actually, our exhibit floor took the space of the whole RCA dome at the football field. And of course it was covered over, but that was our exhibit floor. We had jobbers come in and have their wares there that they sold. And then they also rented space in the convention center to have classrooms. And then they would have classrooms in the convention center touting their wares and demonstrating their different products.
So if you could name off, just for the lay person, what are the different major styles of cuts and styles? You've got perms, you've got, like, if you're going to name different styles that people will get, what are some of the names over the years that you've been able to do for people essentially?
Well, I mean, back in the day, there was the Dorothy Hamill haircut, and there was pause it. There was of course, the Dorothy Hamill cut, which was very, very popular. There's the basic bob haircut, which we've done for years. It's a classic haircut that everybody does, and there's different versions. There's longer versions, shorter versions. There's curly, there's straight, there's completely straight. There's back in the day, there was the Farrah Fawcett perm look cut, and just over the years, a lot of different styles have come and gone. But like I said, there are just the basics styles that have gotten us through. The woman that owned the cosmetology school where I went said they're kind of called your bread and butter styles that you do all the time. So, and they are good basic styles that you do.
All right. So as you were doing the conventions, and you'd have, how many people usually would come to, like, let's say a state convention compared to a national convention?
Okay, one of our local conventions at the convention center would probably have, say, 15,000 hairdressers. And in New York, there'd probably be 50,000, or in Las Vegas, 50,000 hairdressers. And so it is quite different. But being here in Indianapolis, our convention actually it was the third largest convention run by a state hairdressers association in the country. Our convention here at the RCA Dome.
All right. So how many years, and do you still go to the conventions?
Oh yeah, I still go. Every year I go to the convention in New York. I go to the one in Las Vegas.
So what's some of the fun situations you've had with people? Let's say one from Vegas, one from New York, maybe one from Chicago. What's some of the fun stories you remember?
Oh, let's see. I guess in New York, I remember one time we'd gone back to our room. Sandy was with me, and we'd gone back to our room, and she was tired, and we were with another friend that was a hairdresser, and that guy was older than I, so he was not a young stud or whatever. And so Sandy said, well, why don't you guys go out and walk around and maybe go get a drink or something? And so we did. And lo and behold, we were hit up by a hooker. And when we came back and told Sandy this, she said, well, she says, they probably thought you guys had money. It's the only reason they hit you up, because you're too old. So that was a fun experience in New York.
Vegas.
Las Vegas, I can remember one of our national conventions out there that our state group had a suite in one of the, I guess, at the hotel where the convention was. I think that at that time it was at the Sahara Hotel. And they had this suite that had a balcony that overlooked the strip, and they had it catered and all this stuff. And it was a lot of fun going to that, besides attending the convention and having all the classes and seeing all the new products. That's the main objection of going, is to go to these classes and then also go all over the exhibit floor and see all the new items that are available. In fact, I just bought this chair in July when I was out at Las Vegas at the show out there. It came from Los Angeles. They custom made it. I paid extra for the double wide size, because I do have some double wide people. Sandy's cousin played football at Purdue, and I cut his hair, and so he fits in it well now. And so
all right, so let's talk about you checking into the hotel at the Hyatt. And
yes.
Somebody, what was that story?
Yeah. It was for one of our state conventions, or actually it was for one of the trade shows that we had down there at the RCA Dome. We got there early in the day and we were able to check into the room, and myself and one other person had a suite, and he was, I think, my vice president or whatever, but we had an actual suite. So we checked in, threw our luggage in the room, and then took off to the convention center and worked all day long. And when we were finished at the end of the day, we went back to the room, and lo and behold, there was a whole group of people in this suite having a party. And so, I mean, I about fell over dead. I went down to the desk and I raised all kinds of hell, because, what's this all about? Our luggage is in the room, but there's somebody else in the room. So it was kind of an experience. My friends from the association said that they had never seen me as angry as I was.
And you didn't want to party with them?
No, listen, they didn't want us to party because we were done. We were dead from working all day. So that was a unusual situation there.
All right. So Sandy, who worked in the shop, you want to talk about her a little bit?
Well, she was one of the hairdressers that worked in there. She worked there up till almost I closed the salon. And she was an excellent hairdresser and became a good friend. And her mom even worked in the salon part-time and shampooed for us. And so it was a good relationship there. We had many other hairdressers that worked in the salon over the years. They would turn over one by one. And I can remember one girl that worked in there, she ended up retiring. And then the next thing I know, I'm over here in this new location, and she's back doing hair in a salon up front in this complex, renting space just one day a week. And she comes in one day and says, Bill, she says, they're closing the salon I'm in. Can I come in and work in your salon one day a week? And I said, sure. So she came in, and she's been working here on Mondays when I'm not here at all. And so she comes in and does her thing and brings her products in and uses them and then leaves. And when I come in on Tuesday morning, it looks just like Sandy left it on the weekend when she had come in and cleaned the salon, which she does an excellent job. And I sure appreciate that.
All right. And Veronica was your nail tech for a long time.
She was very colorful.
She was a very fun lady as well, and had some cool daughters. So why don't you kind of describe Veronica a little bit and how she would interact with the other customers?
Oh yeah, she would come in to work, and like I said.
And where was she from?
She was actually from the Philippines, and so she married a gentleman, and they had two daughters, and she was a very, very good nail technician. But as I said before, she can get your whole life story in about 30 minutes from beginning to end. So that was not a real asset, but it worked out. She did their nails, and they loved the way she did their nails. So that was the main
okay. So
situation.
One of the things I want to mention is on your old salon that I painted a mural on the back end of the building. Do you remember that?
Oh yes, yeah.
It looked like a French storefront.
Right. It was a French scene, like a street scene on the back of the building, and everybody, the Monon Trail. Actually, when I moved in that salon, the Monon train was going by, not real often, but it would go by almost maybe daily. But we would hear the whistle blowing, and we'd run outside and run up the little hill there and put some pennies on the track, and the train would fly by and mash the pennies up. But eventually then they built the Monon, the train quit running, and they built the Monon Trail there, and people jogged, rode bicycles, and walked on the trail. And so we even had table and chairs sit out there in the back to where the hairdressers could go out there and have lunch or just sit and relax. So it was a fun place to have a salon, and I was there, like I said, for 33 years.
And you also decorated a lot of those front windows for each season.
Oh, of course, yes. In fact, I had a client one time that her husband and she went to New York for a business trip, and one of the things that they had the women in the group, the wives of these men, go to this photographer in New York, and they did photographs of each of these women, and they probably were 16 by 20 inch pictures that they took. And back in the day, one of the products that people used that they could buy at the drugstore for hair was Breck shampoo. And they had these pictures in all magazines of these Breck girls, quote and unquote, of Breck girls that represented the Breck product. And they were always very unusual because somehow the photographer sort of made them look kind of smoky looking or whatever. So she had her picture taken and they made it like that. And she brought it in one day to show it to me. And I said, oh my God, that's fantastic. I said, can I use that in my window display? And she said, sure. So I left it there for a couple of weeks. I didn't want to leave it too long because those windows were on the eastern exposure of the building, and sun came in, and I'm sure the sun could have damaged the picture. So I only had it in there a couple of weeks, but it was a fun experience because I had just done her hair before she went to New York and had this picture done.
So who are some of the other stylists that you've met over the years that you really respect for how good they are at their job and good they are at running their business?
Well, originally, when I went from the commission salon that I went to right out of cosmetology school, I went to this booth rental salon. It was owned by Van Kirby and Dan Dietrich, and they were both very good hairdressers. And in fact, one time after I opened my salon, their salon was just like a block away from my salon. On Halloween one year, they plus the other people that worked in their salon were all dressed up for Halloween. So they came into the salon. We could see them coming across the parking lot, came into the salon and made a little bit of an uproar in the salon, which all the clients enjoyed seeing them come in and stuff.
What were they dressed as?
I can't remember. I can't even remember what I had for breakfast. So,
Did you ever dress up for the holidays? Did you have the other stylists?
I had, like even this year, I had an orange T-shirt on that had a pumpkin on it. So, Christmas, I might wear a red sweater or something.
And you used to have Christmas parties.
Oh, yeah. At our house, we had
any
Christmas
funny things
parties
that happened at those?
Yeah, but we can't talk about that,
You
so
can't.
no. And so everybody would have their fill of libations, and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work. Sandy made the food every year, and it was excellent food, but it was a lot of work. But we did it every year that I had the salon. I just said, this is part of the deal. We got to have this party. So we did. And of course, I decorated the house and the outside and all of that. So.
Do you ever remember telling me that if I was within 100 miles and went to somebody else to get my hair cut, that I'd be cut out of the will?
No, but that could have been true. I don't remember that, but that could have been true. Yes, that's the way I feel. Yes.
All right. So you've been able to make a lot of friendships over the years through your clients.
Yes.
Who would be some of the people that maybe aren't here anymore that you'd like to mention or honor that were some of your closest?
One of them is John Dyer, who I've cut his hair. Basically from day one. I mean, from when I just got out of cosmetology school, I started cutting his hair, and he, believe it or not, he is so particular about his hair that he comes in every 2 weeks. So I just got a card from him the other day congratulating me on my 50 years, and he had figured out the math and how many times I'd done his hair in like almost 50 years, twice every other week. So that's 25 times a year for almost 50 years. You do the math. So that's how many times I did his hair. And then I have clients that I remember. In fact, this one, her daughter just called me the other day and said that she had passed away. Her name was Kitty Baker, and she at one point was the president of the Indianapolis Women's Symphony Group. Just a brilliant lady and very, very nice. She just passed away, and I'm trying to think of other clients. I've had so many over the years. I have one girl, Debsy Dyer, that I started doing her hair early on. She was just out of college. She was married. So she had 2 girls. I started doing these 2 girls' hair. I've done their hair all their lives. The oldest daughter got married, had 2 children. I've done the children's hair. I've also done Debsy's mom's hair. She lived up in Rochester, Indiana, and she would come down periodically for doctor's appointments. And whenever she would be down here, she'd make an appointment to get a perm or cut or whatever. So in that family, I did 4 generations of hair. So, and these people they become actual like family to me. They're just not just customers; they are friends and family. So,
okay. And your wife Sandy, what's been her role to help with the business over the years?
Well, she's been a good cheerleader for me over all these years. And in fact, when I decided before you were born to become a hairdresser, she thought, fine, you can, try it. If you don't like it, you can go back to the bank. But as far as the business goes, she has taken care of the books all these years. And also, my old salon, I had a couple that came in once a year or once a week to clean the salon. And when I moved over here, she says, oh, I can do it. It's small. So she's been cleaning the salon once a week here since I've been here. And I appreciate that a lot.
All right. So if you were going to kind of sum up, you probably didn't think when you started it was going to be 50 years. You never know what's going to happen and
right.
And whatever. So what do you think it really, what do you think you really got out of it? What do you think's really been the bigger benefits just in general of sticking with this and, what you've learned from it?
Well, I think the main thing is the creativity. Through my whole life, I've been able to go and learn new things and new procedures and new products and all of that, but also to have all of these friends and that I've been able to have through my business. They like I say, they're some of them are as close as family. So that's the 2 major things that I have enjoyed throughout all these 50 years. And I tell everybody, they say, when you're going to retire? I says, I'm never going to retire. I said, they're going to take me out of this place feet first.
Feet first.
Yes.
And what's the phrase that people say that hairdressers don't die, they just
no.
Curl up and blow away?
No.
Isn't that it?
No, when I opened my first salon, I wanted to name it Bill's Curl Up and Die Shop, but Sandy didn't think that was too good of an idea, so that's the way it is. And so it's Bill Kurker Hair Design.
And you always usually have a joke for your clients, especially the ones that I send you. What's a joke that you can share?
Well, Sandy, she doesn't appreciate my jokes because she's heard the same ones over and over all these years. But one of the really funny ones that's sort of apropos for this moment, here we are, November the 1st, and yesterday was Halloween. And so there was a story about a kid that was trick-or-treating, and he went to this old lady's house, and he was dressed up like a pirate, and bangs on her door, trick or treat. And she says, oh my gosh, aren't you the cutest little pirate I've ever seen? And he says, well, thank you. She says, well, but where are your buccaneers? And he looked at her and he says, they're under my bucking hat.
That's great. Well, Dad, I appreciate your 50 years of service.
Thank you, Sean.
Give me a high five. You did a great job for a lot of people. And I love you, and everybody loves you too.
And I love you too.
All right. Thanks, Dad.